FI Fo Fum, Wi-Fi, Semper Fi, Google Fi, what the Fi? Direct from Wikipedia, financial independence, FI, is the status of having enough money from investments, passive businesses, real estate, etc., to pay for one's reasonable living expenses for the rest of one's life without having to rely on formal employment, end quote. The typical FI is to focus on your savings rate and lower your spending while increasing your income. But that's not what FI really is. FI does not mean I have enough money to meet all my needs. FI means I don't need money to live my life well. Let me say that again. I don't need money to live my life well. How is that for financial independence? That's kind of hard to believe. Not needing money to live a well life, full stop. Let's explore that idea. Welcome to the FIFE movement. I'm your host, Amanda Neely. This is the only movement that helps our generation create our unique, feminine, and entrepreneurial approach to financial independence. Now, I've titled today's episode, Can't Buy Me Love. If you're not familiar, that's a Beatles song. I was a huge Beatles fan when I was a teenager and I liked them before there was this rad of people liking them in the 90s. I was pre that fad. I've always liked the Beatles. They've been one of my favorite bands since as early as I can remember. And they have this song, Can't Buy Me Love. Google it, watch it on YouTube. It's a good song. But if you're not familiar, the Beatles started out as just regular folk. They started creating music because they loved music and they didn't really think about money that much. They didn't really have a concern for money. A lot of artists do this. They create because they love to create and they're not creating in order to make money. But then, of course, the Beatles had tons of success. And at the beginning, they were still super connected to those roots and to that whole idea of creating without thinking of the money part. And that's actually when they wrote this song, Can't Buy Me Love, and what's been speculated to be a lot of the story behind why they wrote this is they had started to make a lot of money, but they remembered that they were creating music because they love music. They were relating to people through their music because they love relating to people. It wasn't just to make money. And if you follow their story, maybe, from my perspective, they get jaded and they're kind of above it all for a little while. And then they kind of come to this acceptance of life without dependence on money toward the end of, their careers, maybe probably even after their breakup. When they're creating things on their own. But of course, throughout all of that, they got really rich. And it's easy to think maybe they could only find that acceptance of life without dependence on money by getting rich, right? Do you have to get rich in order to have that idea of financial independence? And my proposal to you is no. Some of the happiest people I know don't have 2 dimes to rub together, and yet all their needs are met. I mean, you can think stereotypically of the monk or the nun, right? Who have all the love in the world. They feel really happy with their life, and yet they've taken a vow of poverty, right? But also people that are, making very little, and yet they have the richest community of people. And I want to put out there, what if financial independence in the typical definition, that Wikipedia definition that I read earlier, doesn't actually exist? Because you are always dependent on other people in order to, live life. Life without love and without other people isn't a life I would want to live. I don't know about you. So I think to have this different definition of financial independence, where we might live our lives without a dependence on money, that we're actually independent from the money, and that we live in such a rich community that we're helping meet each other's needs, and desires without concern for how am I going to get paid for this, or what am I going to have to give in order to get X, Y, or Z, right? That's what I want to put forth in the FIFE movement, is this whole idea of reducing our dependence on money, on the Benjamins, on the actual, credit cards and debit cards and bank accounts and investments and all of those things, and bring our focus back to what are the things that really matter. And actually, there's 4, maybe even 5 different definitions of financial, or of FI. It can stand for financial independence, but can also stand for financial interdependence, financial integrity, financial intelligence, and financial intention, which I love all of those. And we're going to have a series coming up in the podcast where we share a little bit more about the different definitions of FI. But I wanted you today to learn that my definition, the definition I'm bringing into this movement and want to promote in the world, where financial independence is about being independent from money to live a life well, rather than we have enough money to live a life well. That's a very different story. So let's start to flip that script. And if that excites you, subscribe so that you hear more about how we can reduce our dependence on money and still live a really full, awesome life. And then remember, tomorrow I'm going to be talking about what a feminine approach to FI is in the next episode. And then the 4th episode, I'm going to be talking about an entrepreneurial approach to FI. So be sure that you check out those 2 as well. Thank you so much for joining me and for connecting with the FIFE movement. As you go about your day, remember, wealth is coming your way. Your quest is to prepare for using it well. For more tips on how to prepare, be sure to subscribe. To connect with the community, visit fifemovement.com. And if my gift today, this reconsideration of what is financial independence, if that's helped you, please pay that gift forward and share this content with a friend. My gratitude in advance. To help this video be seen by more people, please hit the like button, and we invite your feedback in the comments too.